When a user sets down a draft pin, we want to allow them to do a couple of things. First of all, to discard this pin by clicking the discard button, as well as submit their pin when they provided a title, an image, and some content. So let's head back to create pin, and first of all, let's enable users to provide some pin content which we'll store in state with the help of the useState hook. So we'll bring that in, and we'll create 3 pieces of state. All 3 pieces will be initialized to an empty string. So the first piece of state is going to be for the title. So we'll call the variable that we're declaring here title, and its setter will be setTitle. And the same will apply for our 2 other inputs. The next will be image and setImage, and the third content and setContent. We'll begin with updating state by adding an onChange to each of our inputs. So for the title input, or text field rather, we need to add an onChange where we're going to get access to an event, and we can immediately set the title piece of state by calling setTitle and passing in the text value that comes from event, which I'm just calling e here, e.target.value. For the image input, this will be slightly different. It'll still have an onChange where we get an event, but when we call setImage, instead of getting the image from the value property, we're going to get it from event, or e.target.files, and files is an array, so to get the first element, the 0th element, we need to add a set of brackets and include the number 0. And then for our content text field, we can just add another onChange where we get the event, call setContent, and pass in e.target.value. Now on our submit button, we'll add an onClick to execute a new function called handleSubmit, but we want to disable this button with the disabled prop if any one of our inputs is empty. So we can add a conditional and say if not title.trim, so .trim is a method that's going to trim our input and make sure our user just hasn't added some white space. It's going to make sure it's actually empty. So if there's no title content, and if there's no content, there's no text content in the content text field, as well as if there's no image, we're not going to allow users to click this button. However, if they've provided all 3 of those values, our handleSubmit function will be executed, and that's going to get an event, and on it we need to call event.preventDefault when submitting our form. And for now, let's just console log title, image, and content. So let's save and fill out our create pin component. So we'll select the location and we'll give it a title, say cathedral, add an image of some sort, add some text content, and then we can see the submit button is no longer disabled once we've added everything. We hit submit, we take a look in our console, and we should see an object with all 3 of the values that we supplied for title, image, and content. Now one more thing I want to do before we move forward is note that our image input isn't changing whatsoever. After we've added an image, there's no way for the user to know if the image has been added successfully or not. So I'm going to head to the input. I'm going to head to the button within our label and add a style rule where the color, if we have an image, so image, and we're going to give it the color green. And we'll save so that when we add an image, we know that it's been added because the color is going to change from gray to green, like so. Now we want to discard our pin. We want to get rid of the pin from its location on the map, and we want to get rid of all of our content within the create pin component. So how do we do that? Well, we can head back to our button area. We'll go to our discard button and add an onClick, which will reference a new function that I'm going to call handle delete draft. So let's create handle delete draft. I'll create it above handle submit. And handle delete draft is first of all going to return all of our pieces of state, title, image, and content, to their initial values of empty strings. So we can just call set title and pass in an empty string, and set image and do the same, and the same for set content. But we also want to remove the pin on the map, so we have to clear the draft data that we have in state, in our global state. So that means we need to dispatch a new action. So we'll need to use context once again, and we'll import context from //context. We'll execute use context, and to dispatch an action, we'll need to destructure dispatch. And within handle delete draft, we'll dispatch an action with the type delete draft. We won't need to pass through any payload. So now let's head to our reducer file and add a new case delete draft, where we're going to return an object where we spread in the previous state, or all the other state values I should say, and draft will be set to null, its initial value. Now let's save create pin and reducer and test this out. We'll add a draft pin, add some title text and some content text, and hit discard, and immediately in the blog component we're now displayed the no content component, and our pin is removed from the map.